I'm working as a child psychotherapist, and I was really so interested and so excited when I heard about the program Baby Watching, because it felt to me that this would be something that we don't already have in England, and it could be so helpful to many of our children in schools, because the program could reach many children in a large group, whereas child psychotherapy tends to be one-to-one, so it's only possible to reach one child at a time.
So we're aware that there's a huge amount of stress in British schools, and we're aware that there are so many children who have come from very disrupted backgrounds in trauma and abuse and neglect and maltreatment, and that comes into school and there's a lot of disruption there. So there are many children who can't settle to learn in the classroom, and we know that leads to a lot of stress in an already very hard-pressed school system. So we both had a sense of really wanting to find kinds of interventions that would really help to ease that situation in a school, ease the number of acts of aggression and violence, and to really promote empathy. And we came across Based Baby Watching, and we just thought, yes, this is it, because Based Baby Watching is such a simple intervention.
Andrea and I went to a conference, an attachment conference, at which Dr. Brish was speaking, and became extremely excited when he talked about baby watching, because this felt to us, this is exactly what we're looking for, that we need in England. At the conference, we were very excited and went immediately to Dr. Brish and said we need to train to get baby watching into the UK. And he suggested there was a training in Germany. So immediately we went, because we were very keen to get baby watching started in the UK as soon as possible. And after the conference, Andrea and I discussed our enthusiasm about baby watching and decided we must go straight away to Germany, because there was a group leader training. And in fact, I was the one who went, and it was very good to be with people and full of enthusiasm for baby watching. And they were very happy that I was going to come back to the UK and we were going to start this new project.
Yeah. So as soon as Griselda came back, we ran the first pilot. She was able to run a group of the very first baby watching in the UK, and our intention was to get this going as fast as possible. And we wanted to run the pilot so that we would actually have some information to be able to go to other schools and talk to other head teachers, being able to say, it's already happening, and to excite their enthusiasm as well. And then after that, we started planning for the first training in the UK, and to invite Dr. Brish to come over to run the training, and running briefings and inviting people to come to hear about it, spreading the information about our networks, because we wanted to get baby watching into many schools as quickly as possible. So we had the first training, and we thought that all the people who came were real pioneers, because they were very brave. It hadn't happened in this country before, and the training was superb. It was excellent, and people went away really inspired. And within a year of that, we actually had pretty much 20 groups up and running, which meant that 400 children in this country had been able to participate in a baby watching group within a year, which is just fantastic. Our ambition is for 10,000 children in 10 years, but we think we'll probably get there faster than that.
The training was in June, and that's 3 months before the beginning of the school year. So we were delighted that we had so many newly trained group leaders who were enthusiastic and delighted to take into their schools Based Baby Watching. They contacted their head teachers. They had to enthuse them with the same excitement that they had gathered from the training and from each other. And they got started at different times during the year. But through the autumn term, there were already 6 or 7, maybe 10 groups. We were very lucky to have extremely enthusiastic people who came to train as group leaders, and then they went back to their schools and they spoke with their head teachers, and they showed them the DVD, the Based DVD, and this was an enormous help, because the head teachers were then able to understand what is baby watching, and also to show the mothers who were going to come to work with the children. It was a great help for them to be able to see the baby watching DVD. They could then understand how it would be for them with their children, and that made it very much easier for the group leaders to gather together the enthusiasm and the energy to get all these groups going, spread all over the UK. We knew many colleagues who were really worried about the children in their schools, and they were very, very interested when we told them about baby watching. And we invited Dr. Brish to come to London, to the UK, to train group leaders. And we did some briefing sessions before that to talk to people and to let them know what was going to be available in the training. And so there was quite a lot of energy and enthusiasm already. And when Dr. Brish came, we trained 40 group leaders. And from the 40, we are delighted that we have been able to have 20 groups. These groups all went back to, or these group leaders went back to their schools and talked with their head teachers, showed them the baby watching DVD, which was very helpful because then the head teachers could understand. Also showed mothers that they were inviting to come to their schools, to their groups. And this made a lot of confidence for the mothers to see what they would be doing. And they started with enthusiasm as pioneers. That was 1 year ago. All this has happened in 1 year. So we're very excited.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So one of the things we were concerned to do was to create a very professional network of group leaders across the UK. And we've been delighted that everybody has very much taken on the spirit of wanting to cooperate together and do this in a very collaborative way. And we found that there's so much professionalism amongst the people who've become group leaders. So they all understand that each person within the network is basically a representative of base baby watching, and that we're all responsible for each other, and everyone has very high ethical codes of practice and really wants to make it the best that they can possibly do. And the model that we felt was so helpful that we learnt from base baby watching was that everyone would be involved with supervision in some way, that there would be a mentor. Griselda's been acting as the mentor for the first pilot year, but now we've been able to have mentors trained too, so that people are learning on the job. And it may be that there's a group leader who comes into the school, but somebody else from the school can be learning alongside them. So we feel that this is an incredibly effective method of both spreading the principles of base baby watching, but also creating it together in a very collaborative and cooperative way, where we're all learning from each other all the time. And it's very organic and it feels very natural.
Well, because in the first year I was the only mentor, I was spread quite thin, but I was visiting every group, all the groups all over the UK. So I would be there and part of the group while it was happening, and afterwards we would discuss together what went well, how it was happening, talked with the head teacher, talked with the mother, so that it was a group of us together talking in an encouraging way to celebrate what we were learning together. What we're able to do now, which is even more exciting, is because we have 8 mentors, we now have enough mentors to be visiting much more often. I was only able to go to each group perhaps once or twice within the year. But when we have mentors who are local, they're going to be able to be much more collaborative. And I think that's going to add to the enjoyment and the depth with which we're going to be able to work together.
The impact.
And the impact, I think, will be bigger. Yeah.
So I get to hear quite a lot of stories from through Griselda, but also through the individual group leaders when we've come together, or sometimes they email me with information. And I guess what I feel is just incredibly privileged to be part of something so new in the UK that I can absolutely see is making a difference in a very gentle way to the lives of the individual children who are involved, but also to the group leaders and to the parents and the teachers. And I just feel, every time I hear a story, I just feel recommitted to doing this, because there's so much here that needs to be addressed. There's so much pain and there's so much stress in the schools, both with the children and with the teachers, and actually in their homes as well, that I think if there's something we can really do, and we are, it's just amazing to be able to be part of something that's actually having impact, but in a very gentle way, and it feels very natural. So I feel privileged and moved a lot of the time. So.
Yeah, I certainly echo that. I feel very moved so often by the stories. Sometimes it's because I'm there in the school, but it's hearing again and again and again how this is really, really making a difference. And children who have not been able to speak are sometimes now able to talk and express themselves. They bring tears to their teachers' eyes, which is quite something. These are experienced women who are working hard on a daily basis, and they're very moved by what their children are now able to do and how they're able to express themselves. It's very, very special. It's something that comes from the heart, from the children, from the mothers, and also from the babies. The babies. It's wonderful to watch the babies light up and be delighted to be there with all these children around. It feels like a very collaborative family in the best possible way. It's a wonderful, wonderful learning experience, and I'm delighted to be a small part of it.
Yeah. One of the things we were really aware of at the beginning was really wanting to understand very clearly whether baby watching was actually effective. We can see that it's effective in what's happening with the children, but we felt it was important to build research in from the beginning to understand if it's working, how it's working, why it's working. And so all of our group leaders started to build research into their work from the very beginning. So we're excited about that, because it means that from the outset, we will have information to show us what kind of changes are happening with the children in the classes. And at this point, the research that we're doing is really about how they behave. Subsequently, we might be able to look at how the impact of the changes in their behaviour changes how they're able to learn, because our sense is that over time, if children are more comfortable in school and they're happier and they're feeling more peaceful and they're feeling safer with each other and safer in school because they're so settled and there's less violence and aggression, they will then be able to learn better. That's the next stage. But at this moment, what we're looking at, following on really from the research that's happened at the University of Munich, we are looking at some very simple measures to see how the children might change as a result of being in a baby watching group. And we feel that there are huge opportunities for further research, longitudinal studies, for example, and comparing different populations of children. But the marvellous thing about based baby watching is that it works with all children. We were very concerned from the very beginning, even though we were so enthusiastic about based baby watching and we could see that it would be working because of how powerful a model it is, we wanted to build in a research element so that we could really find out concrete evidence that it was having a positive effect on the children in the groups. And we knew that at the University of Munich, they had been doing studies. So we looked at the tools they were using, and all of our group leaders in the UK used those tools from the beginning as well, which is a fantastic opportunity actually to be right at the beginning of a cutting edge program and to implement research from the outset. So we're really looking forward to gathering that evidence and then being able to present it to people to show them how effective it is with the numbers as well as the stories. So we really wanted also at the very beginning to make sure that what we were doing was effective. So whilst it was wonderful to be able to bring the groups into the schools, we wanted to ask the group leaders from the very, very outset to use research tools to be able to understand the specific effects that it was having with the children. And at this stage, we were looking at behavioural changes, and we were asked to use the same tools as had been used by the University of Munich. And so we know that in the future we'll want to look at how that impacts on learning. But at the moment we wanted to see whether or not the participating in a baby watching group was going to be effective to help the children just in how they were with each other, whether it affected them at home or not. And so all the group leaders set off with that tool from the outset, and we've had the first results back, and they are incredibly promising. And so what we can have now is not just the great stories that we're hearing out of baby watching, but we have the numbers that support it as well, and that's phenomenal. That's what we needed.
It's very important too for us in the UK to have this research, because we need it to justify really our enthusiasm. And there are many schools who would be delighted to have baby watching in the school, but unless they feel they can see hard evidence of, is this really working? Is this really a good idea for us to set aside time in the busy timetable to do this baby watching? They're not going to do it unless they can understand that, yes, we have a measurable result.
An impact, yeah.
And that it will really impact in a positive way. And we can understand that.
Absolutely. So within this first year, we have been delighted that there are now 20 groups running, and it's marvellous to get feedback from the groups, from the different group leaders out there who are all incredibly passionate and committed in their different settings. So for example, we've got Michelle Crooks, who's at Battling Brooks School, and she's just unbelievable in terms of the energy that she puts into the group and the thoughtfulness with which she's really trying to understand what's happening for each of the children in the. We also have Brian and Kathy Underwood, who are actually running 4 groups at St Peter's School in Earl Shilton. So there's been a huge amount of feedback from them, and that's terrific to hear all the different things they're doing. So we're also really pleased that we have Helen Craster, who has started the first group in the Isle of Man, and she's been working in a small educational support centre there for children who haven't perhaps quite been able to manage being part of the mainstream, but are doing extremely well in an external provision that can then help them to get back into mainstream.